Ancient Jules is very recognizable, and maybe we should start with that because who is this Jules person?
Well, a lot of people ask me that, and
I can imagine.
yeah, and some people are like, "Oh, is that about me?" Like my friends who are like older. Like I'm like, no. Like it's basically, I was reading a story, and I also was thinking a lot about New York for this last record, and I really value the fact that there are some very special characters in New York, and there's sort of this old world of kind of a hippie, kind of bohemian people that are still around, but they're getting quite old. And there's this one guy who I kind of randomly met who was living in the West Village, and he had this big white beard, and he had hung around like Andy Warhol, and he was around in the 60s, and he saw every band and just knew all the stuff about music, and I ended up kind of befriending him, and that's sort of what the song is about. I mean, he was this kind of person who was fairly radical, and I felt like I was thinking a lot about like current sort of like how younger generations now, how they're kind of perceiving, even just navigating themselves around. Like everything is so different, and I think that I find characters like that really inspiring, and particularly that song was kind of about maybe letting your guard down a little bit with that sort of thing, and not holding your phone in front of your face all the time, although I'm guilty of it for sure.
Yeah, sure, I am as well. Yeah.
I think that consciousness is slowly kind of relying on this way of existing that is new, and I think it could be very damaging. And for me, I was thinking a lot about that, but I also was thinking about this guy who I felt who was incredibly fascinating, and he was very gracious and befriended me in this very roundabout way, and it was very inspiring.
And the stuff he said, does it give you focus? Because it seems like that from the song.
It did, yeah. I mean, it gave me some things to think about. It gave me, basically a story. Like for songwriting, for me, I like to kind of be very observational and kind of use sort of words for imagery, and kind of not be so specific, and also not be so sort of ego driven and like confessional, I guess. So this meeting this guy.
You addressed this last time. I remember vividly.
Meeting this guy by chance, and kind of like having this sort of friendship sort of unfold in this very roundabout way, but also being very mystified by this person was inspiring to me. Because sometimes I think I'll end up like that. So I want to sort of be nice and pay my regards to these sort of mystic folks. It's sometimes like people ask you, what's this song about, and it has to hold this heavy weight. Like, well, this is about the new generation and how they're losing their perception of reality. Well, it really, the song kind of stemmed from me daydreaming about what if I was in the van on tour, because lyrically, if you follow it, basically the idea is basically like this weird little daydream where I'm on tour with my band, and we're in a van, and our van breaks down, and essentially this guy is my guru. So we're lost, we have no phones or maps, and so I call Jules, and he's like, just don't go to the show and just hang out. And so basically I had this daydream that this situation happened, and that I called him and I asked him, what do we do? And he's like, just go to the park, and so we do. So within the song, it's just a little stupid story, but we go to the park and like fall asleep and miss the gig, and we go back to his place very late at night, and he plays us records, which he's done for me before. So I don't know, I kind of flipped this idea of shit, like, oh man, where are we? Like, let's look at our phone and get there. It's like, no, let's call Jules and see what he thinks. So
listen, that's a solid backstory for a song that I guess like a lot of music doesn't have that backstory. Hey, I would imagine. So that's pretty cool. So that's pretty solid. I mean, so it's not it's not you were mentioning. I'm sorry, I apologize. But you were mentioning not being too specific. Well, that's a solid. That's a solid concept. It's a solid idea. I mean, So I'm not saying that's specific. I'm saying like that's pretty concise at least.
Right.
So you know what you're aiming at with the thing.
But it's also for me, I really enjoy coming up with these loose ideas I mean, I guess that's what a lot of songwriters, I mean, history is just, I'm not doing anything new, but basically it's cool to create these sort of descriptive stories and then put them in the song, and then you don't tell people what it's about, and then they're like, oh, what is that song about? Well, what do you think it's about?
Yeah, of course.